Zac Efron is like a huge celebrity crush of mine, has been since the sixth grade.
Okay, I feel. What is it because of High School Musical?
It's because of High School Musical.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was on the Zac Efron train before High School Musical.
Oh, whatever. I liked him before he was cool.
He was in this TV show. I think seriously, like I was like 10 or 11, called Summerland.
Yeah.
And he had a massive gap tooth.
I remember that. God, he was so cute.
Gap. And he was like so awkward and dorky. And then he was also like, in.
Looking back, like sixth grade me was like, he's so hot. And now me looking back, I'm he was so cute. Like he was so
but like
looking.
Compare sixth grade Zac Efron to today's Zac Efron. Oof. Boy grew up.
Hello everyone, and welcome to The Same Page. If you don't already know me, I'm your host, Jenna Clausen, lover of books, sympathizer of book-to-movie adaptations, and owner of an embarrassingly long TBR list. Each month, I'll be bringing on a bookish friend or two to discuss some of our current and favorite books, as well as a few recent binge watches, and to share in a buddy read. Grab a drink, join the discussion, and let's find out if we're on the same page. Trigger warnings for the book that we'll be discussing in today's episode include sexual content, loss of a parent and cancer, and mention of a car accident and injury to children. Please keep that in mind as you listen, and if you choose to read this book. My guest today is my friend Rachel, also known on Instagram as ShellWhite211. Rachel is a part-time teacher and full-time social media manager for a motorcycle dealership. She's also involved in multiple book clubs on Instagram, including the Evergreen Readers and Literally Shelved Nonfiction Chats. As always, you can find all of her information, as well as where to follow her, down in the show notes. And with that, let's jump on into the episode. Welcome back to The Same Page. I'm excited to chat with you.
I know, me too.
Before we start talking about the book and I kind of go over the publication stuff again, do you want to start us off with what you're drinking this week?
Yes. So it's morning, so I've just got my coffee again. But I did oat milk in my coffee.
I also did. So I had posted in the stories yesterday that I got a matcha latte. It was actually my second one of the day because my husband really wanted another one of the coffees that he had the day before. So he went to Starbucks again and got me another one. And I did not finish it because I can't do that much caffeine in a day.
Oh, yeah.
So I have it left over, which is nice because, like you said, it is early.
That's really good.
So it's a Starbucks matcha latte with oat milk because since we talked last week, they added oat milk.
I know, mine did too. It was serious. I know, it was within the next few days. I was like, whoa, she predicted this.
They listened to the episode and they were like, oh, damn, we really need to get that oat milk out to Texas. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm there we go. Reach behind me. So today I'm super excited. Again, we are talking about Simmer Down. Cover looks like this again. Very cute. Just some information about the book. Author is Sarah Smith. Published by Berkley Publishing. Copyright year is 2020. And then this paperback version that I have is 319 pages. And I'm really quickly going to go ahead and read the back cover since, once again, I forgot to do that last week. Nikki DeMarco knew life wouldn't be all sunshine and coconuts when she quit her dream job to help her mom serve up mouth-watering Filipino dishes to hungry beachgoers. But she didn't expect the Maui food truck scene to be so eat or be eaten, or the competition to be so smoking hot. but Tiva's Filipino cuisina, Casina? I don't know how to pronounce that, has faced bigger road bumps than the arrival of Callum James. Nikki doesn't care how delectable the British food truck owner is. He rudely set up shop next to her coveted beach parking spot. He's stealing her customers and fanning the flames of a public feud that makes her see sparks. The solution? Let the upcoming Maui Food Festival decide their fate. Winner keeps the spot. Loser pounds sand. But the longer their rivalry simmers, the more Nikki starts to see a different side of Callum, a sweet, protective side. Is she brave enough to call a truce? Or will trusting Callum with her heart mean jumping from the frying pan into the fire? Apparently, it's early enough that reading is very hard for me. I just had a very hard time with that. But it's super cute. I enjoyed it a lot. I know you did a bit last week, but do you want to give us a little bit of a Spark Notes version again of why you chose this one?
Yeah. I think the main thing that drew me to it was just the food trucks. And we talked last week about our love for food trucks.
They're so
and
good.
I don't think I've
Food tastes better when it comes from a truck.
I don't think I've read a story involving food trucks.
No,
so I
don't
really
think I have
idea.
either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because I was thinking about that when I was reading it. And there's a lot set in restaurants, but it's usually like the big 5-star restaurant that it takes a week to get a reservation for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I loved like all the talk of the food and the setting
so
too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It made me want to go out to a food truck.
I know. There aren't really any in El Paso, and especially not right now.
Mm.
But I did really miss, or like we were talking a lot about Washington specifically last week, and in Puyallup there is, or at least used to be, this big like taco bus that was huge for everyone. Like all Puyallup people knew about the taco bus, and that's just what it was called. Nobody really knew the name, but it was so good, and I just got very hungry thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that while I was reading.
There's one up here that I really like called Stacks Burgers.
Oh,
and do you know them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they have a PB&J burger.
I don't think I've tried that one.
Okay, it's amazing. It's my favorite.
Wow, I love. So overall, what did you think? Did you like it? Did it live up to what you were hoping for?
Yes. Yeah, I really did like it. I will be honest though, in the very beginning, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this.
The beginning was a bit slow. I was not expecting that.
Well, I have all these tabs in my book. It's from like page 50 to page 80. That's when I was like, I don't know. It's when she starts having like her little fantasy dreams about him. And
so it was because you didn't like the steam.
Well, that was part of it, but it just like it honestly just felt like really ridiculous to me. Like from that point until the London point.
Oof, love that.
I actually, when she's sitting on the airplane, I like wrote on my tab, like, is this real life? Am I going to hate this book? Because it just seems so ridiculous to me. But it definitely got better. And I did end up really enjoying it.
Hilarious. So I should say really quickly, before we start talking about characters, quotes, scenes, all that good stuff. As usual, we're going to try and keep any in-depth discussion about the ending or any like particularly spoilery bits towards the end of the episode. So sorry, it is so early and my voice is just like not about it. So this is going to be a greeting episode. But so anyone who might be interested in reading this book after we talk about it and might not want it spoiled for them, you will get an official spoiler warning. I ended up really enjoying this one. Like I said, the beginning, there were parts that were a little bit slower for me. but none that were like slow enough that I had a hard time getting through them. It was just slow-ish to the point where I was like, I'm ready for the end of this scene type thing.
Right.
And I think I had mentioned in last week's episode that I last year read her first book, which was Faker, and that I remember liking it but not loving it. And so I was excited for this book, but I was also a little bit nervous to see if that was going to be the case again. And I did like this one better. I don't know if that was the setting with the food trucks or if it was that I liked the characters more, maybe. I am not quite sure, but I did like this one better. And they were kind of weirdly similar in places. They're both like workplace enemy to lover type thing. This one obviously is a little bit different since they are competitors, not like working in the same office. But anyway, that's my spiel on that.
Yeah.
So I warned you yesterday that we were going to talk about favorite character, scene, and quotes if you had them. Do you want to start off with a favorite character?
Okay. My favorite character, I mean, okay, obviously I kind of really struggled with this book because I felt like I related a lot to the main character and her like fears about relationships and just the way that she reacted to things throughout the book. I felt like I related to her a lot. But I would say, I think at the end of the day, for me, the MVP of the book was Penelope.
Oh my gosh, me too. I absolutely wrote her down. So after we talk about characters, I'll kind of go into the plot a little bit. So you'll get more about her then. But Penelope is so cool. And she doesn't come in until like halfway through the book.
I know,
like a third of the way through the book.
Even when she comes in, I feel like she still wasn't like a main part of the book, but until the things that she does, the things that she does though are like, she's such a good friend to Nikki and like never wanting anything in return. I wrote in the book at the point where she really like helps Nikki out.
Yeah.
Which I wrote her what she said was or Nikki said to her like, why would you do this? And she said, it's my job and you're my friend. And I just wrote in the margins like MVP.
Seriously, so she's so good. Okay. So again, we will talk about the ending at closer to the end of the episode. So I'm not going to say quite what she does yet, but yeah, she full on comes and saves the day. And she's like, yes. And she's a hype man for Nikki the whole time. And it's just, it's so good. But she basically is a social media manager and like consultant. She started a social media consulting company, which first of all is awesome. And you find out again towards the end of the book, because that's when they're having more of these conversations. But you find out she moved to Maui with a boyfriend and literally a month later found out he was cheating on her. And instead of moving back home, she was like, cool, I'm going to make a life for myself here and you can go bug off a little bit. It was so good.
I know. Modern woman energy there.
I love her so much. So talk about the plot a little bit here, and if I get to like a favorite scene or something that particularly jumped out at you, go ahead and stop me.
Okay.
And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And I'm gonna try and again give a little bit of a Spark Notes version so that people can still do their own reading if they would like to. But basically, like it says on the back cover, she and her mom run this food truck. And they have this like perfect spot on the beach and it's amazing. And it took them forever to find it, but they found it. And this super rude, super hot British man shows up with his food truck and his brother and is like, cool, we're parking here too now. And you can't do anything to stop us. And she's like, okay, bitch, it's on, like type thing. And they start battling.
So he had a very bad first impression.
It was bad. It actually took me a while to like him because of that. I did in the end, but it took me a while to get there. But yeah, so they start like fucking battling it out, and she puts a sign in front of his truck, something about, oh gosh, what was
imperialist?
Yeah.
Yeah,
imperialist food. Or like mediocre imperialist food. Something. So that people won't go and buy stuff from his food truck, and he doesn't notice until the workday is almost over, which was quite funny to me. And then he puts one in front of her truck that says she and her mom are diseased and are like
leprosy.
That's right, I forgot what it was. And then it gets a little bit more tame, like just stealing the sauce bottles or the napkin holder, whatever, and hiding the things that are in front of their truck. But it gets pretty brutal in the beginning. One thing that I thought was very funny was food bloggers and vloggers are a huge part of this story. And they start flocking to these basically dueling food trucks to try and get videos of them arguing because they have gone viral. And that was rough, I think. Obviously that's a thing that would actually happen in real life, but you like to imagine that it wouldn't.
Right. Everyone wants the gossip. Everyone wants the tea.
I know. Give me the tea. But yeah, so people keep showing up, and this one food vlogger, what was his name? Mateo. I had him at one point written down as an honorable mention, and then I was like, no, Penelope needs her own time to shine. But this one food vlogger that like comes back pretty frequently in the story convinces them that it's the best idea for everyone to just keep going business as usual until this big food festival, which is a competition, and whichever one of them either wins or gets a higher score gets to keep this coveted spot. So what did you think about that as a like problem solving moment? Was that good, or should we just have said like, bitch, I was here first, get out of my way?
Right. I mean, like, yes, from day one, he should have just moved. And I think especially if he had won and she had to move,
I would have been pissed. Yeah. So slight spoiler, she does win and keep the spot.
That's why I paused right after I said it. I was like, oh.
I know. You're like, let me pause so that if she has to cut that out, there's room. But yeah, if he had kept the spot in the end, I would have been pissed.
Yeah. But I did like that, like the addition of that. I thought that was so cool. Like there being a food truck festival that they had to compete at. Like
it seemed really cool too, because it was all of the food trucks on the island, but then also the bigger restaurants could compete too. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Like, is that a real thing? Can we go to that?
Right.
They got to cast their votes on their phone.
I know. Got to eat all of the good food. Oh my gosh, the food sounded amazing, and now I'm just very hungry thinking about this book again. Yeah, so I thought it was pretty cool. I agree. I do think it should have just been like, I will leave because you were here first. And I can see that I'm causing problems for you. But near the end, he explains why he didn't leave. It didn't make it better for me. Like I said, I did like him at the end, even though it took me a bit of time to get there. But that was one of the moments where he was like, yeah, this is why I didn't do it. And she's like, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, no, it doesn't.
I know. I didn't feel like his explanation wasn't it just like that was the first place they found?
Yeah, it was that he was there to help his brother who hadn't found a spot, and so he just like stole a spot and was like, "Here, we're here now." And she was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Like it was like a valid excuse. No.
Like, bro, you could have driven around a little bit more.
Right. He's like, "I guess I didn't realize that it was so hard to find a spot." And like, yeah, you didn't, because you stole one.
I know, but I mean, it had to happen for the story.
I guess it's one of those, you have to excuse someone being a jerk so that you can get the enemies to lovers and the banter and whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, why? Why is this so easily forgiven? And so they start working towards this festival, and they are still pranking each other a little bit. They're still fighting, and she is sort of every once in a while trying to be nice and not really like buddy up to him, but be like, we can be civil adult human beings around each other. And he's just like, nuh-uh, and blows her off. It ended up not being
it's way more intense than just like nuh-uh. It's like glares.
Yeah, like shoves past her in the farmer's market.
Turning his back on her like he's like a 2-year-old.
He's very dramatic. He's a very melodramatic person. Before this happens, it didn't end up becoming quite as important to the plot as I thought it would, even though I loved it very much. So I'll just kind of briefly mention, but she finds a cat on a beach who is injured, and it turns out pregnant, and just like really wants to love on someone. And she takes this cat to the vet, and he's there because he volunteers there, because this is kind of the book trying to be like,
he actually has
a soul. Good person. Yeah. No, but look, he really likes cats, and he volunteers at a vet shelter. So he's a good person. You should fall in love with him now and get married. It felt a little bit like a cop-out, but I get it. And so he like pays for the vet bills for this cat, and she takes the cat home and is like, he's still a jerk though, because he makes it the way he says it, and again, never fully explained away once they're on good terms, but he makes it very like, I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for the cat, you suck. And she's like, okay, jerk, like, I'm taking this cat home now, bye. And that's another thing that I feel like it was not sufficiently explained once they were together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like that was my biggest issue with this book, honestly, was that so many... I feel like enemies to lovers, I love a lot as a plot point in a book, or as a trope, but I feel like my favorite ones are when it's all a misunderstanding. And like, maybe
I get what you're saying.
They dislike each other, but like the reasoning was a misunderstanding, and like they both saw bad sides of the misunderstanding or whatever. I'm not explaining that very well because I'm very tired, but yeah, I just feel like he was really mean a lot of the time in this book.
She described him as a curmudgeon,
which I loved.
Like, yes,
that is a word that I think people should use more often, is a curmudgeon.
I know. I was like, that's a good word for him.
Right. We should bring that back. We should start calling people curmudgeons when they're grumpy. But yeah, he very much was like, he seemed like the little old man yelling at kids to get off his lawn. Like, he just, he seemed mean a lot of the time, up until what I'll get to in a minute, where they like call a truce and they like each other now, and now it's all because they've found each other really attractive, and that's part of why they've been fighting. And it just kind of was forgotten that he was legitimately mean, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then it's just like never fully brought up. She, in a moment of sexual passion, is like, you never apologized. And he was like, I apologize. And then went back to business, basically. But yeah, that would be my biggest issue with this book, I think, is that it was never like explained to a good enough extent. I don't think yeah. Other than that, I liked it, but that bugs me. And so she adopts this cat. He's a dick. They keep going. And one scene that you mentioned sort of is when she starts having dreams about him, because she sees him naked at a beach and is like, yes, please, I want that. I didn't get very much sleep last night, so my brain is saying things in a very weird way.
Can we talk about how he's described? He's a mixture
of my gosh, yes.
Zac Efron and Michael Fassbender. Did you know who Michael Fassbender was before?
Yes. Partially because, well, okay. Mostly because my classics buddy Reed did Jane Eyre a couple of months ago, and we watched the movie. I knew him from other things, but that was like the most recent why he pulled up to my head so easily. But yes, I did. But it is kind of a weird
can't picture a combination of them. I looked him up, Michael Fassbender, and I was like, wait, how do you combine him with...
That's so funny. He's from the newer X-Men movies too. But yeah, Zac Efron is like a huge celebrity crush of mine, has been since the 6th grade.
Okay, I feel... What is it, because of High School Musical?
It's because of High School Musical.
Okay,
yeah.
I was on the Zac Efron train before High School Musical.
Oh, whatever. I liked him before he was cool.
He was in this TV show, I think, seriously, like I was like 10 or 11, called Summerland.
Yeah.
And he had a massive gap tooth.
I remember that. God, he was so cute.
Gap, and he was like so awkward and dorky. And then he was also in...
Looking back, like 6th grade me was like, he's so hot. And now me looking back, I'm he was so cute. Like he was so
but like
looking.
Compare 6th grade Zac Efron to today's Zac Efron. Oof. Boy grew up.
I know. He and Nick Jonas were like I want to say childhood, but that makes it sound very weird. But my like junior high to high school celebrity crushes, like they persisted all throughout. And just because I was the age for it, like I was the target demographic for High School Musical and the Jonas Brothers. And
my first concert was a Jonas Brothers concert.
I went to 1 or 2 of their concerts. My first concert that like I picked, because I had gone to a lot of concerts with my family that I really enjoyed. I don't mean to make it sound like I didn't, but they weren't like I picked the person and I went to the concert type thing. But my first one that was the Cheetah Girls with the headliner, with the opening act, Hannah Montana, when she was opening for the Cheetah Girls. Weird tangent. But now as an adult, every once in a while, I'll like pat myself on the back for how well my childhood crushes aged, because they only got hotter.
That's very true. I was more of a Joe girl than a Nick girl.
Fair. I had one friend that was like, I'm a Kevin girl. And I was like, you do not exist. This is not a thing.
That's so good.
Which is so sad, and I feel bad for saying now, because he's like, he always seemed like such a sweet person, and he was in the group, so he was like equally talented as the other ones.
I know so many girls that have said, like, after watching their latest documentary, They're like, oh, my heart beats for Kevin.
Kevin. Oh.
Yeah. So
anyway.
I pretty much just pictured him either as Zac Efron or as another British actor who has blonde wavy hair. But I couldn't quite get the Michael Fassbender there.
Yeah, I was trying to like go through this is gonna sound so stupid. I was trying to go through like the Rolodex of Zac Efron like forms in my mind, because as he got older, he had so many different looks, and I was like, maybe there's a specific one that meshes with Michael Fassbender. There wasn't one that I could think of.
That's so funny. You didn't watch the second Hunger Games, right?
I think I saw the second one. I think I saw 1 and 2.
Because the guy in the second one that played Finnick, that's who I kept picturing him as. Anytime that she would mention like blonde wavy hair, that's who I pictured was Finnick. He also was the guy in Me Before You. I think his name is Sam something, but I can't remember.
Oh,
that's who I pictured though.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you wrote that down, because I forgot about that, but that is hilarious. But yeah, so she sees him naked at the beach and starts having these dreams about him. And I won't talk about this too long, because I know you said it wasn't your favorite part and the steam is not always for you. But I did just want to briefly mention, I thought it was interesting and honestly kind of cool that there is then like a trigger warning for sexual content. There is a female masturbation scene in the book, which maybe it's just the books that I'm reading, the rom-coms and stuff, but that just seems like I don't see that in books very often. And a lot of the time when I do, it is at the urging of her partner, or somehow for the male partner's satisfaction or pleasure. And it wasn't at all. Like, this was before they got friendly or started talking. It was, you know, before anything. And
just
I just thought
she was really turned on by what she saw at that beach.
And it is descriptive. But I just thought that was honestly really cool, just because I don't see that very often. And I liked that it was included.
Normalized.
Yeah, exactly. And then down the line, her mom kind of forces her to go on this trip to London. She's like, you need a vacation. You never stop working. You're driving me a little crazy. Go visit your aunt and uncle. I bought you a ticket. And she goes and she gets on the plane. And who should sit next to her but Mr. Food Truck Hunk? And she's like, flight attendant, I would like to switch seats because he's rude.
That was one of my favorite lines, though, in the book, when the flight attendant keeps hitting on him and she's like, do you want a drink? Do you want some ginger ale? Do you want this?
Oh my god, she said something about like, well, we don't have ginger ale.
Not either of us.
Because the flight attendant was like leaning over and she was like, we don't have any ginger ale. We have Coca-Cola and Sprite. And I don't want to think about you being parched or something. And it was so weird.
To be thirsty.
Yeah, like what a weird way to fly, like going up to someone like, can I get you to something to drink so you're not parched? Like, it was so weird. Yeah, and then Nikki's like, someone is thirsty and it's not any of the people in this row.
That was one of my favorite lines.
It was very good.
But I really, when he shows up and is the one that's sitting next to her, that's when I was like, really? Is this a joke? Like, right. Am I gonna like this book?
Right. It was kind of a little ridiculous, and like, what are the odds? Like, it's one thing to say they're on the same flight and they have to like see each other or be near each other at the airport, But even in her like inner monologue in the book, she's like, can we talk about the 1,000,000 to 1 chance that even if this week we're both flying to London, he happens to be on this exact flight from Seattle to London and happens to be in the seat next to me and like all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, actually, can we talk about those odds? Because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it was meant to a little bit be like the you're at a hotel and there's only one bed trope. But it was more unbelievable than that, I feel like.
Yeah.
And even that one, people make fun of a little bit because it's like, okay, you take this bed and I'll go stay at the hotel down the street and like we're fine. Or like I'll sleep in the car, you know, whatever. There are other ways to handle that. But yeah, it just felt like that was kind of what it was going for, but it took about a step and a half over the line.
Yeah.
It was just,
but
I didn't hate it. It was
like
just
the
weird.
Turning point, but yeah.
So they're super flirty on the flight and they get really personal. They talk about their past and their family, and I'm not going to go too in depth with the family just because the trigger warnings that I will have put at the beginning of the episode, quite a few of those do relate to Nikki's dad and his passing. But he learns that she and her mom run this food truck because it was her mom and dad's like dream was to retire in Maui and to run a food truck. And she quit her job and went to spend time with her dad before he passed away, and then is helping run this food truck. And they've been having a lot of money issues because they're having to pay for medical bills and stuff like that. And you find out that he also quit his job and moved to Maui to help his younger brother, who actually owns and runs the food truck, because he made bad financial decisions, I guess, and needed money help, and his parents weren't going to help. Yes, so again, not quite the same thing when he's like, I need to help, and we're stealing this spot now. It's ours. We've earned it. Not quite the same thing. But they find out about each other's past. They feel connected to each other, and they decide that they are going to start kind of fooling around and seeing what happens while they're both in London. And so they do. And this book was very steamy and sexual. I would put it probably 3.5, 4 out of 5 on the scale. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because it's not quite like, there are quite a few scenes that talk about it, but none of them are like graphic. So I definitely wouldn't go 5. But it was descriptive, I would say. And so they get back from London. They decide to be this like friends with benefits secretly because the people who run this food contest can't know that they are together, which there weren't too many quotes that like stood out to me during this book for some reason. But the one that I did write down was all the way in the beginning on page 26. So like early. And it's when that vlogger Matteo is convincing them to like base who gets the spot off of the contest. And he says, festival officials are being even stricter about contest rules this year. The winner has to win on their own merits, which means no help from anyone. I hear that if there's even the slightest hint of eateries fraternizing with each other, you could be disqualified. That certainly won't be the case with you two, which it's slightly because we know it's a rom-com, so we know that they're going to get together. But at the same time, I was like, oh, Chekhov, is that your gun? Just like leave that there. Like that obviously won't be an issue for you two. And again, part of it is because you know it's a rom-com, so like they're gonna at least hook up. but it was very funny to me. Anyway, so they come back. They're trying to keep everything very secretive. They're now sharing the cat, which is weird. They're like, it's like a divorced parent situation. We share custody. And they are a couple times a week having these like secret dates. And this was when one of my favorite scenes happened. Was like the one date that they went and did out in the people.
Mm-hmm.
You're nodding. Did you like this one?
Yeah.
So basically, I was apparently really bad at taking notes on this book because I didn't write any specifics down. But basically, it's a like casual outdoor masquerade dance block party type thing.
Yeah.
And so he convinces her to go because it's a masquerade. And he's like, we'll be hiding in plain sight. No one will know it's us because we'll be wearing masks. And so they go, and it's like an outdoor block party, and there's dancing and there's drinks, and it's a masquerade, and just seemed really cool. Like it seemed like something I would want to go to.
Yeah, definitely.
It was very good. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, like I liked that they were out in the open, and I feel like you could really tell that I think that was the point for me where I was like, oh, he definitely wants to be more than just like hookup buddies. And like he was so excited to be out in the open, and they got to just see each other outside of the bedroom and see like how like that was the first time for him like seeing her dance and like seeing her really like let loose. And I liked that they got to do that and have that. And yeah, like you said, like it seemed like a really fun date.
Yeah, seems like something I would want to do. Obviously you can't do that very often in Seattle because the weather at night, even if it wasn't raining, it would be fairly chilly probably.
Right.
But yeah, it just seems cool. Maybe I'll move to Maui one day and I'll see if it's a real thing. And then the only other thing from this part that I wanted to talk about was their other like go-to date type thing out when they are not having lots of sex, is that they hang out on the couch with the kitty that they adopted, and they each have a bottle of like sparkling rosé or of pink champagne or whatever. And they turn on an episode of The Office US and an episode of The Office UK. And by the end of both episodes, they have to try and have each finished their bottle of champagne. And it's a champagne drinking contest. And it was just very funny to me.
Yeah.
And this is one of the only things that like comes back a few times throughout the book. And because they're talking about The Office, they're like comparing the two versions, and they're talking about romantic, like grand gestures and what kinds of things they like because they are comparing the two in the show. So they're like, do you like the big romantic gesture that this guy does, or do you like the like little subtle personal one that this guy does? And she likes the smaller ones, and he likes the big grand gesture, show up on a horse like moment, which becomes important later. Are you a like big romantic gesture girl?
Yeah.
I
mean, like I feel like I'm a sucker for them in books or like in movies. Like I love the big grand gesture, but I do feel like maybe in real life I do really like when a guy can take like a little detail from a conversation and then like remember that later on and use that in some way. I do love that as well.
The simple thing like knowing how you like your coffee, or like your favorite kind of bread for toast, or like
this
small
was
things.
something
it's just like
I had told a guy that I had been seeing like my workout schedule one week. I told him like, oh yeah, on this night I go to this class and on this night I go to this class. And so like 3 weeks later, it was a Wednesday night and he was like, oh, you have TRX tonight? And I was just like, you remember that? Like something as small as that. If you can remember something like little like that, it's precious.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, oh my gosh, you were full ass listening to me. Like,
yeah. And like you cared enough
so
to
that you got the important bits. Like you retained this conversation that we had.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle too, where I'm like, when my husband proposed, it was like this big thing and it was very much like this big romantic gesture type thing. But at the same time, like, he will come home and he's like, I saw this Bob Ross coloring book and I know you miss watching The Joy of Painting to fall asleep to. So I thought this would make you smile. And I'm like, it does, thank you. And like, those are sometimes the most romantic things in the world. So I feel like it kind of depends. You need a mix.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, the like, big romantic gesture doesn't always work out in real life.
Right. There's a moment when you need a big gesture, but if you can keep up those little gestures, that's pretty important too.
Exactly. And so at this point, we're starting to get a little bit closer to the end of the book. Did you have any other like scenes or quotes or things that you liked from the beginning that you want to talk about before we kind of get further into that?
No, I think mine are closer towards the end.
Okay, awesome. So again, they are working towards this festival. It's coming close and they have been fighting a little bit because, like Rachel said, at this point, we are definitely in on the fact that Callum wants to be more than friends with benefits and he wants to have a full-on relationship with her, and she is not comfortable doing that, partially because of the festival, because she and her mom really need this opportunity and, you know, really could use this money if they won. And also partially because she has some issues with trusting that she won't lose people because of the situation with her dad. And so she is pretty guarded based on that as well. And so they've been fighting a bit. And right before the festival, her mom ends up in a hospital completely unexpectedly. And it turns out that she had been like withholding her health information from Nikki, even though they are living together and Nikki is the one like helping take care of her. She got some diagnoses right after the dad passed away and was like, I'm not going to add to that. So I'm just going to keep these to myself. And they have this whole argument about that because now there's health issues that, first of all, were already happening and Nikki had no idea about. And she's like, what if you had collapsed and they asked if you were on medication? And I had said no. Like, I would not have known what to tell them, and that could be really dangerous for you. And then now she is also having additional health issues that relate to this that Nikki was not able to like mentally or emotionally prepare herself for because she didn't know about the smaller issues that led to it. What did you think about this? I feel like this is kind of a situation where it was like they both mean well, but they're both just slightly missing the mark.
Yeah, I think that like you can see how they both were trying to protect the other one. You know, like the mom was trying to protect Nikki by withholding this information, like protect her emotionally. Yeah. But at the same time, Nikki, not that she's like the caregiver for the mom, because the mom is fully capable and fully healthy. Yeah. But she is the only one like with her, you know, she's the only one living with the mom. And so it definitely was important for her to know the information that was going on. But I think the thing for me that I was the like most irritated with in that scene is that she kept talking about her mom like being honest, and she kept saying like, we need honesty, we need full transparency, we need full honesty, and yet she was withholding this massive thing from her mom too.
Right.
And like really same situation. Like what if she had gotten in a car accident on her way to see Callum or something and her mom wouldn't have known? Like I just was like, there's a little bit of hypocrisy here.
There was definitely a bit. Yeah, it did bug me that she didn't, if not in that moment in the hospital room, like I get that she doesn't need that kind of potential emotional stress right now while she's healing, but like even once they were back home, she didn't really tell her mom. And I'm like, you're kind of preaching something that you're not following yourself here.
And she withheld it for a long time. And it wasn't until her mom said, like, I already know about this.
Yeah.
That's when she finally told her mom. It was
the last like 2 chapters or something.
Right.
When she was like, by the way, I already know about this. Were you going to tell me?
Right. And I don't know. I feel like if I were the mom and my daughter was preaching to me honesty and was getting mad that I wasn't being honest with her, and it'd
be hard not to be like, bitch, listen up.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
That part kind of bothered me.
Yeah. It bugged me too. I am the youngest of my siblings, and I like by quite a bit. And so throughout my life, I feel like never to like a huge extent, but at least partially throughout my life, there's been a whole lot of like me not really knowing what's happening with family members health-wise, because they're like, she's the youngest and she's the most emotional, like we will tell her when it's an issue type thing. But I just feel like that is more hurtful than anything else, you know? So as much as Nikki was in the wrong here, I feel like I really felt for her, because it's like, you need to have time to process things before they become a problem.
Yeah.
And goodness, my throat. And yeah, again, it's like she is the only person there. So if something had happened while her mom was working in the food truck or while they were home, she could have given incorrect information that could have been really bad and could have potentially been detrimental. So they were both in the wrong in this scene, but I feel like I was almost siding more with Nikki because it was what her mom was withholding was a bigger deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Meanwhile, she and Callum have kind of separated, not like officially, but they have a fight because he tells her he's being too controlling of her mom, and she's kind of like, really, right now you're choosing to say this? Because I was right. Like, I was right to be worried about her health, apparently. So they have this big fight and he leaves and they don't talk to each other for the next few days. And then suddenly they do, and everything is normal and they just kind of ignore it. And then it's the festival. And this was another moment where I was like, Callum, like I was liking you and now I'm just really annoyed with you. So like they've been working towards this festival for a month, more so, but like it's been about a month since they've decided to also like stake this perfect food truck spot on this competition. And so they've been working and stressing about it for a while now. And he chooses at the festival, like during work hours of the festival, that it is the perfect time to go up and confront her about him having caught feelings and wanting to have a full-blown relationship. And I don't think that she handles it the best, but also like this is your perfect moment, you think? Like right now is the time that you think this is an appropriate conversation.
Right.
I was so annoyed. I feel like I took a step back with Callum there. Like, read the room, man. Timing is everything. And this is the worst time you could have chosen, is in the middle of this competition that you're in against each other. Oh, I got so annoyed at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And so they have this big blow up about, she's like, I can't right now be like, yep, I'm going to date you and just like screw my mom's and dad's dream and this food truck and everything I've been working for since I moved here. And he brings her dad into it, which is super uncalled for. And they have this big blow up. And of course, the vloggers are back and they catch it all on video and post about it. It was just frustrating.
It felt like they felt a little bit more like TMZ, you know, like that.
Yeah, they felt very like paparazzi, or like they thought they were paparazzi.
Right.
And it's like, you're not, though.
Mm-hmm. And then for them to, I don't know, for them to like turn the whole breakup thing into, oh, this was all staged, like this was all planned. And yeah.
So at this time at the festival, they officially break up. It's huge. It's all over the internet. People are gossiping about whether it was real or if it was a publicity stunt. Like we said earlier, Nikki does win the competition, she and her mom. So, like, get first place, not just win against Callum. Because the breakup is so big, they get told from the people running the festival that they don't get the money because they can't prove that there wasn't fraternization between the two food trucks, which is just annoying. I feel like they should have been able to, like, she and Callum should have been able to prove that there wasn't.
Yeah, they should have been able to do like some kind of investigation into it for something as big as that. Like, it was $20,000. Like, to just be like, just kidding.
Yeah, so they do. They just email her and are like, oh, we saw that you broke up with your boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But also because that boyfriend also cooks food, we're keeping the $20,000 that we promised you. Sorry. And this is where our girl,
Penelope,
the MVP, comes in. So I basically skipped right past her in the talking about the book, but she is, again, a social media like professional, and is a consultant or running social media, kind of a gray area in the book. It's not super.
I think it's just more of like, she has her own like Instagram blog and a massive following, but then because of her account, she's been working with these other brands doing social media for them.
But for like huge companies, like TV channels and such. But she runs into Nikki pretty early on and is like, oh my gosh, I love your food truck. It's the best food on the island. I eat there probably way more often than I should. I love you.
Hardcore fangirling.
Yes. And then later on, she bumps into she and Callum together, and they're like, don't tell anyone. We're keeping it a secret, but also wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We call you Cupid sometimes. And she's like, oh my God, really? And even at that point, and that's, I would say almost 2/3 into the book, probably.
Right.
So even at that point, it seems like she's just going to be kind of a silly, like, vlogger character that just shows up in Fangirls once in a while.
Yeah, I thought that she was going to ruin it for them. Like, I thought she was going to tell people.
That's what it leads you to believe. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then she doesn't. And instead, she's a badass. And at this point, like, scoops Nikki up and is like, we're BFFs now. And Nikki's like, cool, love that, and tells her the whole story. And she calls Nikki right after this email comes through that they're not getting the prize money, and is like, hey, they just put up a statement and it's super shitty what they did, but you just got tagged in something else from this other TV station that I'm in charge of the social media for, and I convinced them to do the thing, and go look at what it is. And basically it's this post that they're tagged in of this huge TV station saying what these people did taking this money away was so dumb and unnecessary. And so we're going to give you the money instead, and you can be in a commercial for our TV station. Just like, because we like you.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, Nikki, or Penelope, like, why would you do this? Or why did you do this for me? And she's just like, because we're friends.
Yeah. Because we're friends. I did this huge thing.
Right. And that was part of like what I loved about Penelope was she never asked for anything back from Nikki. Like she never,
no, not
it
once.
wasn't like hey, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It was just like, oh, let me do all of this for you.
And she continues to do things that will help Nikki. Like later on, she's helping work in the food truck and helping paint the food truck. And she does an Instagram live with Nikki that we'll talk about later, because she has this huge following. And just like all of these things. And you never really see Nikki reciprocate it.
Right.
And I'm sure that she was, and it just wasn't in the story, or that we can assume that the character does later on. And it's just like, this is when I'm low and I'm being carried through, and then it'll switch and I'll help carry her through type thing. But I wish that there had been a little bit more of something just to be like, this is a mutual thing, and it's not just Penelope being like a guardian angel, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
And so now we get to the big romantic gestures. Earlier on in the book, like again, around 2/3 of the way through, Nikki and Callum are asked to cover for a chef who can't make it anymore, who was going to do this big like featured dinner at this hotel, fancy restaurant. I wasn't quite sure. And they do it, and everyone loves it, and it's amazing, and they get offered a job to work there. And they both take it, and it's great, and then the big breakup happens. And the guy calls Nikki and is like, hey, Callum isn't doing it anymore, but he said that you would be better for it anyway, and you're amazing, and he never gives compliments. And she realizes that this is his, like, small but personal and heartfelt romantic gesture. And so she tries to make a big one. What did you think about this? What were your thoughts?
Like, I get it. I get what she was doing, but it seemed like a little misplaced because she already knew that he didn't use Instagram.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I liked the fact that she was like, he did the kind of romantic gesture that he knows I appreciate, so I should do the kind that he appreciates. And I liked the fact that it was both of them doing a romantic gesture to win each other back instead of one person like taking the lead and doing this romantic gesture and everything being okay in the end. But yeah, she decides to do it by doing this big Instagram live with Penelope and confessing her love to him, which is very sweet and could be huge if he was ever on Instagram to see it. But it's like not a plot point, but it's in multiple of their conversations throughout the book that he does not get on Instagram ever.
Right.
Like he has an account with no posts and no previous stories and like no followers.
At that point, I feel like it was just feeding into the conflict almost, like, because he didn't see the grand gesture, but she thought he was just ignoring the grand gesture.
Yeah,
so
it felt like it was trying to kind of cause more of that Act 3 tension before the big like coming back.
But at that point, I was like, let's get past this tension. Like, I felt like it had been dragging on for so long at that point, like them going back and forth and arguing, like really like since the mom was in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I felt like the tension at this point continuing was a little unnecessary. And I definitely agree. I love, again, like I said, that they were both doing a gesture for each other, and it was going to be this, like, makes them seem so much more like equals in the relationship, and I loved that. But I feel like there would have been so many other ways that she could do this exact same thing that didn't involve social media that he's not on.
Right. And I also, I get that it was like two birds with one stone, because all of the vloggers and bloggers were bothering her, like wanting to get the true story. So I get that she was doing that, like she was addressing it. But
like also, at that point, if they're still bugging her a lot at her food truck. So you have to imagine that they are at his food truck and bugging him still as well.
Yeah. And she could have done the Instagram live at his truck.
Right. Or like show up early and put it on his menu board. Like,
right.
There are so many, or just show up at, like, take Instagram out of the equation, show up at his food truck during business hours and be like, hey, I love you. And later she's like, I didn't even know where you were working. And I feel like that's supposed to explain why she didn't do any of those. But you could find out.
But you knew where he lived.
Right. But even like you could find out where the food truck is. He doesn't do Instagram, but his brother does for the business.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of bugged me just because I loved that she was doing the big romantic gesture, but like do it any other way. You can give the same exact speech. You can still do a Q&A with the annoying vloggers, just like in a way that he will see it and not just lend to you misunderstanding a lot of other situations for the next 2 weeks or however long it was.
Right.
I don't know. It was annoying. Obviously, they get back together in the end. Lemon, the kitty, has her kittens. They sound adorable. I loved that. Honestly, besides Penelope, Lemon was the MVP. And then we get to the epilogue. Do you want to talk a little bit about the epilogue?
It kind of shows them working together. They opened up a restaurant together, and we see that Finn, is it Finn? Yeah. Finn is now the brother. He's now controlling or running both food trucks, or managing both food trucks. And we see his girlfriend is running Tiva's, and the mom is cooking at the restaurant with Callum and Nikki, and then going like one day a week over to Tiva's.
Which made me laugh. I feel like I get it because her mom had been having health issues, like keep her close by where she knows if something happens, there's someone there to take care of her. And Nikki knows that if something were to happen, she's there to like know and take care of her. But at the same time, it seemed out of character for the mom to be like, okay, yeah, I will go down to once a week at this place. That was my literal dream. And start working at this other place. Right. Dream. Seemed weird. Also, in the epilogue, they're engaged, but you don't really see the proposal. Like, she talks about it and she says, like, this is how he proposed to me. But I feel like I would have liked it better if you actually, like, felt like you were seeing it in the moment. I don't know. Felt like it was, I don't know. Maybe that's just me overreacting. Because like I said, she talks about it and is like, this is how I felt. This is what he said. It felt, to me at least, like it was missing something with the fact that it wasn't that in the moment, like you're feeling these emotions with her. I don't know. But that is it. Yeah, I don't know. If you were to give it like a out of 5 star rating, what would you give it?
I gave it a 4. like I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. And I would recommend it to other people. Yeah.
I feel like I'm about at like a 3.5. So it will probably go up to 4 because Goodreads, you can't do half stars. But I feel like there were only a couple of things about it that bugged me story-wise. But those couple of things that did really bugged me.
Yeah, they were like big things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, we were talking about his reasoning never seems like it was a good excuse or a good reason. And she just, by the end, or not even by the end, like on the flight, is like, yeah, that's fine. I get that. I totally understand.
Right.
And then the stuff with the mom in the hospital was a little bit rough. And I just like, yeah, I don't know. It'll probably be 4 for me. But if I was doing like with half stars, I think I would go 3.5.
Yeah.
I know you said your scenes and quotes and stuff were closer to the end. Do you want to talk about those?
Yes. So for me, my favorite scene was the part where she gets jealous and she cancels, she sees something, gets jealous about it, kind of overreacts, cancels plans with him, and he reaches out to her and he's like, what's going on? Like, why are you canceling plans? And she, of like every normal girl, she's like, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And so he's like,
because someone was being like super flirty at his truck and he didn't stop it necessarily,
right?
Discourage it.
Yeah. And she's like, or he's like, come over and talk to me about it. And so she goes over there, and first of all, like I this was one of the parts where I felt like I related to her so much. Like I get how she was starting to feel these feelings, even though she knows it's supposed to be casual, and she's starting to feel things. Like, I am the queen of not being able to be casual. Like, I don't try anymore. But then also how she's like, this is where her fears come up about losing someone and not wanting to get involved in a relationship because she lost her dad. Like, again, I get those fears of like, everyone leaves. It's like inevitable that they're going to leave. And so I felt like in that whole scene, I just was really, really relating to her.
We're like,
but
yeah.
I know. And also the whole overthinking thing, like queen of overthinking,
same.
Yeah. But then the way that he was able to just like, he communicated with her and he said like, this is what I'm feeling, like this is where I'm at. Did you really think I was going to like cancel plans with you just for this other girl? Like the way
and she's like, well, I don't know.
But the way that he was communicating with her, I was like, that is a man right there. And I wrote like in the margins, like communication equals 5 stars. Like if a guy could communicate like that, his hotness level goes way up.
Oh, absolutely. And the accent's already doing a lot for him.
Right.
But the communication at that point was just so good.
Yeah. I get like he wasn't the best throughout the book, and there were different points where he like didn't handle things the best way. But I did think that the way that he was able to communicate, and even later on, like he is the one that's like, look, and I honestly felt like from the beginning, he didn't really want it to just be a hookup. Like she's the one that was pushing for it to be just a hookup. So I felt like the way that he was able to just say like, this is what I want. When a guy knows what he wants, like that's pretty nice.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And then my favorite quote was, I loved how the mom always talked to the dad's ashes, like Harold. And so after Nikki did the live, and the mom was like, our girl really put herself out there today, Harold, for love. You'd be so proud of her. I was just like, oh,
it was so cute because we've all been there, like missing someone and just like talking to them and just wanting to have that conversation. Oh my gosh, it was so cute.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just like. I I had been trying to think of what a favorite quote would be, and I was thinking like maybe I'd include something with how she talks to Harold, like the first time the mom talked to Harold. Mm-hmm. But then I got to that point and I was like, oh, that's it.
That's it. The one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one earlier too when Nikki is kind of micromanaging her mom's life a little bit. And she looks up at the urn and is like, you hear that, Harold? Our daughter thinks she knows better than I do. I'm the mom. And it's just like very funny. I don't know why she turned Southern there when I said that, but it was just very
I think
funny.
That was the first time that she did it. And I was like, wait, who's Harold?
Who were you talking about? So good. Well, before we start wrapping it up, do you have any other like final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of everything. Like I said, I loved the scenery, the setting, and the food aspect of it. Yeah. And then, yeah, it was, like I said, it was kind of a hard read for me, just because of how much I like felt like I related to her in those aspects. But I did like being able to see at the end of the day, like it wasn't just Callum that saved the day, you know, like there was Penelope and there was her mom and there was even her mom's best friend.
Yeah, it felt like the whole community kind of came in to help fix the situation.
Right. And so it was like, it's not just a guy that helped her through her hard time. And even like her being able to reach out to her friend from Oregon, like just being able to see, all these different people that helped her, not just the guy. I did like that aspect.
I did too. It made the ending feel more heartfelt, I feel like. And even more realistic. I just like it better when it's a group of people who can come together and be like, this is how we're going to fix this, instead of one person, again, kind of coming in on the white horse and being like, I have solved your problems.
Right.
Yeah. Which Penelope did that a little bit, but because it was one of her girlfriends instead of the love interest, I feel like I liked that better.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah, MVP.
MVP. She was so good. Well, do you want to tell people where they can follow you?
Oh yeah. So my Instagram is at shell_white 211. And then my blog is searchingforeloise.space.
Yes, and just like last week, those will be down in the show notes as well. Give her a follow. And I'm just going to wrap up the episode real quickly here. You can email me through the podcast anytime at thesamepagepod@gmail.com. If you have any books you think we should read for the podcast, any questions, collaboration requests, favorite parts of an upcoming book you want us to discuss, send me a message on Instagram, send me an email. I'd love for you folks to be a part of the discussions with us. If you want to reach out to me specifically, you can find my blog with all of my full reviews and tours and all of that good stuff at tacklingtbr.home.blog and on Instagram at tackling_TBR. And as for the podcast, you can find and connect with us anytime on Instagram at The Same Page Podcast, on Twitter at The Same Page Pod, and you can find us on both Facebook and YouTube just by searching for The Same Page Podcast. And the last thing, as always, is if you folks are listening to the episodes and you like what you hear, thanks so much. I appreciate it. If you were to decide to go to Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever it is you're listening, and subscribing, leaving a positive rating, and even leaving your thoughts in a review, it means the world. It takes just a minute or two, but it really helps a lot more bookish folks get introduced to the small shows. And with that, I will be back next week with a new guest. Very excited. But in the meantime, Rachel, thank you so much. This was fun. It was a good choice.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.